Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Detour. We're not live this time. I'm your host, Dan Jones. I'm joined by four-time national road champion Johnny Trevorrow. And the fact, Johnny, that we're not live, geez, it takes the pressure off. We can say and do whatever we want. We can always cut
it. Might even talk about the sponsors and everything. It'll be great.
Oh, you didn't have to bring that up straight off the bat. Apologies from the deepest areas of my heart to our friends at Bike Exchange in Mitchelton. I forgot to plug the sponsors, a cardinal sin on a podcast for our chat with Simon Clark. So we're going to give you extra love.
We weren't going to mention it.
But you just did straight off the bat. Anyway, we've got a massive show, as we say every week, but this is a big one. And John, what can you say about, well, we've got Matt White on. He's on every bloody week. But we've got a very, very special guest as well.
We have Christian Vande Velde, one of the, a great long pro career, I think 17 years, something like that. And he was touted as the Tour de France champion from the States, and he almost got there, just off the podium. But a great career, good teammate of Stewie's for a while with CSC, and a great support for a few Tour de France winners. So I'm looking forward to a fantastic conversation. And from a great history of cycling, his father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather are all cyclists, plus some of his siblings. So I'm looking forward to the whole story.
Well, they're both kind enough to join us now, Christian and Whitey. Welcome, fellas. I'll start with you, Christian. How are you traveling, particularly in the States at the moment? All we get fed back here in Australia sounds like it's a bit of a COVID shitstorm.
It is a bit of a shitstorm, for lack of a better term. That's for sure. I mean, it really depends on where you are. The north is a total mess, and luckily we're down here in South Carolina, so we have good weather, and the numbers aren't so bad. But yeah, it's a mess, man. I'm not going to make light of it.
And Whitey, how are things over there in Spain at the moment, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. We've got a degree of restrictions here, but in my part of Spain, it's not so bad. But the numbers are coming down, but it's all relevant, mate. It's all relevant where you are. The numbers in the States, numbers in Europe are slightly different to where you two boys are sitting back home.
Yeah, we've had 40 days in a row, mate. COVID-free.
So, double donuts, as they say. No one's died and COVID-free, but we've just managed to open up the borders in Australia between the states. They've had their own little battles going on here, but it's still very, very restricted to for people coming from overseas, and that's why Tour Down Under and Cadell's race have had to be cancelled.
Now, guys, you obviously know each other really well. You've had a relationship as riders, teammates, sports director as a rider. You've probably crossed paths with the media side of things as well. Christian, how far does it go back with Whitey?
I'm trying to think, Whitey, with that Czech team you were on, when I first met you in Philadelphia, like 97, I want to say. So
yep.
Like
it was 97, mate.
And what were your first impressions?
Which was a hybrid of the AOS. It was AOS ZVVZ. So there was 6 or 7 Australians, 6 Czech riders, and then Jens Voigt and another German. And it was a combination team that lasted the year, and that was before the AOS. And actually before cycling changed from amateurs and pros to under 23s and elite. But we did a big stint in the States and did all the fabulous racing that was in America at the time, and that's where me and Christian first crossed paths over there.
But more importantly, he had 2 guys on the team with Jens and himself who have the gift of gab, and so they converse with everyone. So everyone knew Whitey and everyone knew Jens within the first week of racing in Philly. So yeah, that fostered the relationship from there on.
Was it a big thing, particularly in those early days, when you go over to places like Europe and that, having these English speakers that had a bit of personality? I mean, they would have been worth their weight in gold.
Oh man, and especially Whitey and some of the other guys, you knew you could always find them back in the office, like the last 10 spots in the peloton. That wouldn't be happening today, but when the work needed to be done, Whitey would be there. But when it wasn't, they'd be all cackling and throwing jokes and throwing people underneath the bus in the back.
Now, Christian, you rode with Postal from 98 to 2003. Now, there's obviously been a lot written and said about that sort of era and that time. But when you look back now, what are your memories and what are your emotions when you think back of that period?
I mean, Completely mixed, obviously, all over the gamut. So from 21-year-old coming over in '98 to leaving the team in 2003. But yeah, I look at the positive, and the '99 tour team was so much fun, and we had so many Americans on there, and then having relationships like with Whitey, and how many days that Whitey, myself, George, and Cappy all spent together doing the classics and the breakaway that we were together in Tour of Flanders, days like that really. But as far as Whitey and I go, yeah, it goes a lot farther. That definitely with Garmin. But yeah, my days at Postal, yeah, it's obviously a mixed bag what came out, but it is. We all know the story by now. So yeah, that's ancient history.
Iffy?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at it. So yeah, Julian Dean riding for a little while in that team as well. And when you really look at the guys who've come so well out of that, has been Jonathan Vaughters, who's been what he's done with the EF has been pretty amazing. And you, Whitey, Christian, Julian, you've all come out of it really well and learned something from it, I would reckon.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Julian was a teammate together in '99. Then Whitey came over a couple of years. I think Jules had already left though by the time you got there, right, Whitey?
Oh, we did 1 year, 2000 together. That was 2001 together. 2001 together. Then he left. Yeah,
that's true. And then JV and I were roommates for a long time, both on the road and back in Girona. So you're right. There was a lot of, and then coming back together, almost 10 years later for JV and I at Garmin, that really started everything else. And Julian's the same thing. I remember meeting him in '95 and. In a bar. It's really weird that I met him in a bar as well. In Japan, of course.
But like one of the big takeaways, I think John makes a good point, is like people that went through that era, there was a lot of assumptions, particularly in the media, like, everyone had a black and white decision and that was it. Whereas you look at some of the biggest changes in the sport and world anti-doping policies have been born out of people don't want other people to have to make those choices. And you look at what happened with Garmin and, look at the biological passport. I mean, it's a fact. These sort of things wouldn't have happened if it wasn't born out of those experiences.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought that up because, that's one of the proudest things about my career is what we did in Garmin, with the biological passport and no needles rule, all these things that are really commonplace now. No one starts a career thinking that they want to put a needle in the arm. That's the last thing on your mind as a 15-year-old or 12-year-old. So I'm very proud of what we did in Garmin 2008. The ball started rolling a little bit earlier than that with CSC and some of the biological passport, of course, but I think we took it across the line and really, show, first of all, that it was possible, which is the hardest thing to do in 08 when I got top 5 in the tour. And then it just kept on improving until we sit here today.
Whitey, one of the common threads with these successful teams was chemistry, particularly how you interact with each other. And what we're finding even in 2020, we're hearing a lot of people talk about the results from these younger guys and just this mindset and the chemistry. Like, is this something that was a big focus, particularly in that Postal era and going across the Garmin? And how do you sort of really build on that?
Yeah, look, I think the chemistry where we had in Garmin was a very unique one. I think when you look at that roster there was some key athletes: David Millar, Christian, Magnus Backstead, Julian, Dave Zabriskie, Danny Pate. There was 5 or 6, 7 really key guys, and then a lot of young Americans they were trying to develop. But the chemistry that we had, and it was quite a unique period for myself because I'd only retired the year before in 2007. So I was racing against and with these guys in 2007, and then 2008 I was on the other side of the fence, and I think we had a pretty unique chemistry in those first few years of Garmin, that's for sure, and it worked really well. But it was a small team that got big very, very quickly, but the results we had straight off the bat were pretty special, and I think that momentum and ball did start rolling, and it carried on for a long time there.
Christian, you also had really strong chemistry, particularly in that CSC era. I mean, you had some massive hitters in that team, but from a media's perspective, whenever you'd interview and you see you guys interact at the bus, it seemed like you all really clicked. Did you bring a lot of some of that experience when you were at Garmin as well and said, oh, well, at CSC, this is what we did or whatever, or how did all that sort of work?
No, I tried. I tried the best. good, like it. And I remember when Dave Zabriskie and I coming after our first training camp with what was Slipstream and then Chipotle and Garmin a little bit later on, and Dave Zabriskie crying like, why? What? This is the biggest mistake of our lives. Why did we leave CSC? We had so good. But no, we really did. And you're right, Dan, by bringing that up. We did have incredible chemistry. I mean, that just looking around, everyone was just that little bit more mature. The youngest one we had there was Andy Schleck, but he was, he's an old soul as well. So as far as looking around the dinner table, there was no real big egos there. Everyone, would check themselves or check the others if there ever anything like that ever did flare up. So it was a special couple of years there. And yeah, I did try to bring it as much as I possibly could of that mentality over. Of course, it wasn't easy. We were against all odds. We were such a small team with just a couple of guys who had some talent, and Ryder as well in there. I don't know if you mentioned him, Whitey, was an integral part of that. So, but yeah, JV's got a good eye for talent and what people can truly do. And some of us, it was a little bit of a last chance, a little bit that, we hadn't asserted ourselves in the peloton, and we were given the chance there.
I remember that 2007 Tour de France at CSC. It was pretty special. You had a great group. There was yourself and Stewie and the Slecks, Jens, of course, Kurt Arvidsson, who's a bit of a character. But it was a wonderful start, that one, because Fabian got the yellow jersey in the prologue and kept it for about 6 days or something. But it was that stage 3, I think it was, where he actually won the stage, out-sprinted the sprinters. It was just an amazing ride.
On the pave as well, in the yellow jersey into Compiègne. I mean, it was incredible. And we had such a strong team. We could do whatever the hell we want, at the front, especially with Fabi in the yellow jersey, with guys like Zabriskie and Yenzi. So we could do literally what we wanted to. So you had a lot of confidence going to that, but it was touch and go. We almost didn't bring that break back at the end. And then we're hearing over the radio. By that point in time, I already sat up with Zabriskie, and you hear Kim Anderson screaming over it. And we're like, oh, no, something must have happened. Then we realized that Fabian actually won. I'm still dumbfounded to this day.
I remember that stage, John, because you stuffed up the accommodation, had us booked into a bomb shelter, and Jerry told you where to go and had to drive 100 Ks to the airport just to get a bed. Is that right?
Well, close enough, I suppose.
Look, easy on Johnny. There wasn't booking.
It was the old
there wasn't
double
booking.com back then.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't.
One thing I want to ask you, guys, this is Whitey and Christian, is how much can you use a chip on your shoulder to get maximum results? You're saying, like in the early days of Garmin, none of the small budget, no one thought you're going to do anything big, but it all happened pretty quick. But how much did that extra motivation of, hey, guys, no one thinks we're going to really do much. Did you use that, Whitey, with the boys?
I think it was naturally there with the guys because it really was a very top-heavy organisation the first couple of years. And all the guys really, they had a point to prove. And because the team did gel so quickly and so tight, they were really there for each other. And I think once we got those first wins on the board, the boys, I remember the boys nailed Tour of California straight off the bat when it was a February race. And then we came to Europe and the results started coming. And then we won the Giro Teams Time Trial there in Palermo. Christian took the pink jersey. And all of a sudden this momentum had started and it just didn't stop. And now Christian ended up finishing top 5 in the Tour de France. It was, but I think going back to motivation, I think the guys had it there and it was a mix of guys who had a point to prove, but for different reasons, and it just gelled really well.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Whitey, and I really think that some people work really well with having a chip on their shoulders, and others do not. Everyone has a different, character of what motivates them to race well or train well. Even more importantly, and for myself, that really wasn't. It was more when I had a great team around me, which I did there. And really felt that bond and camaraderie. And so that's when I always thrived. I didn't really thrive with a chip on my shoulder, and I still don't. That doesn't really motivate me. I mean, it might be great for somebody, but not myself.
That 2008 tour, that's your first one with Garmin. You did a great ride. 4th in the Tour de France is pretty special. Did you feel at some stage that you were a chance to win that?
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. Whitey could tell you. I mean, I didn't see my teammates for hours at a time many times. So it was really more that, Whitey and I were both on the same page, and we were in uncharted territory the whole time. I'd never gone for GC in a big stage race like that or Grand Tour like that. So it was hard, and we were actually a little bit too conservative, I would say, for most of the times. I mean, how to come, I still keeps me up at night sometimes, like not going with the leaders when I felt good. So all in all, it was fantastic, and I wouldn't trade it for a second. But yeah, there was some chances that I could have taken, but I was almost a little bit too conservative, as if I was racing off the others and not doing my own race.
Is that the hardest thing, because you were going into sort of the unknown? If you had have had a few under your belt with the GC, you would have probably known your limits a bit better?
Oh, for sure. I mean, just giving me a couple more years. I mean, the problem was I was already, pretty old. I mean, that was already my 12th, 13th year as a professional. And so that arc of my career really made me very conservative and almost a little bit, trigger shy, just because I wasn't thinking that I deserved to be up there. And then maybe having some teammates a little bit later. So, everything was turned around 4 years later when I got to help out Ryder win the Giro. And Ryder had that confidence going, and I had that confidence in Ryder. And, Pete Stetina stepping up as well. That thing's changed. You're having a little bit more. And really, it's all it is confidence. So much confidence. You see it going into this year as well, with the young guys just going for it, not even thinking twice about attacking. And I just didn't have that. I did learn to have that, and I learned to have some confidence, especially when your teammates have confidence in you. Sometimes it's ironic, but look, same thing with Teo Gegenhardt this year. The kid had no confidence himself in the Giro until he started realizing that everyone puts their pants on the same way, and I'm feeling really good, and I think I could beat all these guys. But it mostly came from his teammates inspiring him.
How hard, what is that as a DS, to find that balance between backing yourself, rolling the dice, and then being able to be conservative?
Yeah, I suppose in that, with the Tour de France we're talking about with Christian, it was my first year as a sport director. So I was conservative as well. Top 10 in the Tour de France was incredible, and we were there around the mark for so long, and I suppose I didn't have the experience either to maybe push Christian through those stages as well. I think I was probably like Christian, probably happy with where we were, and you learn and get that experience over the years. But I think that's probably the big difference that we've seen in cycling over the last 3 or 4 years is this younger generation have no fear, and the generation we're seeing now especially the last 2 or 3 years, have grown up with a different cycling as far as training is concerned, and they're just riding off numbers. They don't care about who you are. If they have no experience, their first Tour de France, their 10th Tour de France, they don't care. They just want to take it on. And also, I think we're seeing a very, very special batch of riders coming through all at the same time.
So when you got to Paris in 2008, you finished 4th, as you said, top 10, huge result. Were you feeling good about that, or were you still stressing about, as you said, Hortocam, or thinking, man,
no way. I mean, no, it's just, we're out of our minds. I mean, like what he said, started the year, and first of all, we were a wild card team. We weren't even in the Tour de France until we won the prologue in the Giro d'Italia. So even just to be in the Tour was already massive. Let alone coming close to stage wins and getting a top 5 was over the top, really, especially for someone like myself who never even tried to get a top 10 before in a Grand Tour. So, we were very happy.
Now, one thing Garmin did really well was post-tour parties. I remember going and seeing Pharrell at a nightclub once, sponsored by POM. I mean, those days are long gone, particularly with COVID. But, I mean, you talk about chemistry. Yeah. How important were these parties?
They were important. Yeah, we threw some good ones that, didn't pull back to that. But the worst part was that I crashed out of tour. So I was one of, Tyler and I were like, well, what kind of guy? They asked us, Palm asked us, what, we want a band. Who do you guys want? And Tyler's like, let's go big. Let's try to get Nerd and Pharrell. I was like, no way, we can't get him. They're like, well, all right, fine, let's try it. And then I crashed out. I didn't even get to go. Still, that hurts a lot more than product.
Mate, I don't know how I got a ticket, but I remember being.
You probably got it off me, Jonesy.
In fact, I think I did. I think we did. You on the last day, you were like dealing these deck of cards, going, mate, you want to go to a party? I'm thinking, like, yeah, what sort of party is this? He goes, yeah, mate, Nerd or something. I think the band's Nerd. We're going, what? No way. It's like, yeah, mate, 300 people. He's there busting out whatever songs.
Private gig just off the Champs-Élysées. It was a big one.
But we've mentioned this a few times, Whitey. Some of the things you did at Garmin, I mean, it was just fun, and that is actually pretty important. Like even the famous training camp at the Cayman Islands.
Oh.
Yeah.
For the listeners, can you just summarize what the training camp was? And
firstly, let's wind it back a little bit. It was not a training camp.
Okay.
It was a get
what
together.
Happened? Right.
It was a get together.
It's important for chemistry. This is the whole.
It was important for chemistry. It was.
Yeah.
All right, I'll set the picture. So it was Garmin was merging with Cervelo. So there was it was like a last minute merge. They were coming with 6 or 7 riders. The world champion Thor Hushold, a few other key guys. And we needed to do something. I think we were losing 3 or 4 riders, but they were coming with 6 or 7. We're keeping 20. Boom, there's the merger. Cervelo, Garmin, boom. Anyway, so Jonathan had done a deal with the Cayman Islands tourism department that they would give us free accommodation, and it was only for 3 days. But everyone would fly in. So most of the team was in North America, so the flights were pretty cheap. And then there was a group of us, and I flew with Brett Lancaster and one other Australian. I can't remember who, but we spent just as long getting to the Cayman Islands as we're actually in the Cayman Islands, and because we had to go to Los Angeles, then Los Angeles, Miami down to Cayman Islands, and we were there for 48 hours, and it was just a get together, a couple of meetings, and then a couple of dinners, just a bit of bonding. We played one activity that was quite interesting was the treasure hunt across the whole island of Cayman Islands, which got a little bit messy. But it was a good couple of days from what I remember of it. And then we got back on our planes and headed back across the world, another 20 hours plus of travel.
Is that how you remember it, Christian?
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember a few more things than Whitey does, but yeah, it was a special camp. That's for sure. Yeah, Ryder came over to my house in Chicago, and we flew on down together. And unfortunately for myself, we had booked a vacation at the Cayman Islands the week before we knew this was going to happen. So I came back home for 2 days, and I turned around and went back to the same place. You can't make that shit up. I mean, I was so bummed. Whitey came up and he's so excited during the Vuelta. Hey guys, we're going to go to training camp at Cayman Islands. Like, no, that sucks. So yeah, there was a lot of Cayman Islands here.
And there's not too much to see on the Cayman Islands. It's very, very small. You can see from one. I remember getting up there and we'd had a bit of a night out the night before, and I looked out my window of my hotel and I saw these apartments. I looked across, up on the second floor. So I looked across, I saw these apartments, and I'm like, these apartments are moving. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell has happened here? And what it was a cruise ship pulling out. But because the island is so flat, and I was just like, whoa, and then, these apartments were like moving out to sea, and I was like, oh no, I worked out what it was pretty quick, but it was a good couple of days.
One guy
I reckon there's something getting swept under the carpet here. Now, come on, Whitey. You've admitted that you haven't got great memories of it. Christian, you're saying you can remember it better than Whitey. What happened, Whitey?
Okay, there's one that I have to say.
Perfect. Let's go.
Right. Sorry, Whitey. Whitey woke up in somebody's front yard, standing up. That's all I gotta say. He was standing up and he came to, and we had to go find him. And the sun was up, and it was it was like a fine. Where's Waldo? Well, we got Whitey back up.
It was in someone's stairwell. It was in an apartment stairwell. But you are right. I did. It was a very. I got a little bit lost in the treasure hunt. And didn't end up finding the treasure, but found my way back to the hotel anyway.
Well, one guy you talked to about that trip who's I don't think he's scarred is Brett Lancaster. Like I say, what was Cayman Islands like? He goes, oh, no, mate. I seriously got crook. That is like, I've never had alcohol poisoning, but I was poisoned. Seriously sick.
Matt Wilson was there as well.
That's who it was. Me, Wilson, Matty, and Bert traveled for 25 hours to go to a place for 48 hours, and turned around and went back home again.
Well, what is the fine line with all that sort of stuff? We often talk about, you wouldn't do that nowadays because of this and that, but I don't know. I think if it's starting to come back round again in terms of, is there a huge risk if you do like a couple of days of bonding, because then people could take advantage of like, you're having a few beers or whatever? Or do you think that there is, merit and it is important?
Oh, look, I think there's a time and a place, that's for sure. And I think the problem now is having that time and a place with the team and not with the general public. And, I think get-together bonding is really good and has a good value with your teammates. The problem now is that everyone's phone has a camera and everyone is connected to social media. And so the things that you could do 10 or 15 years ago and just have a bit of fun with the boys and have a few drinks out, well, that even perception, if these days professional athletes are seen to be professional 365 days a year, that ain't true. And riders need time to relax and spend time with their teammates or have time with their families in an off season. But I think there's definitely a time and a place, but that window is totally different now with riders compared to what it was when 15 years ago.
Christian, you're talking about obviously riding for GC. It was the first time 2008. I've heard interviews with guys like Bradley Wiggins, who was a teammate, and he said, look, I could have only ever won one Tour de France, knowing what it took to win the Tour. How hard is that mentality to be a GC rider and put all that time and effort into winning, say, a Tour or to reach those sort of marks?
No, it's incredibly hard. And honestly, especially being on the other side of the fence, I'm just in awe of what these guys do today and the mentality you have to go every day. And it's not for everybody. I had a mentality that was a little bit more natural to me to do that day in, day out kind of thing. But for some people, like Dan Martin's a great example. That was the first time he ever went top 5 this year in the Grand Tour in the Vuelta this year. So he loves to go for the races. He can't hold himself back. He's willing to take those kind of risks where, really you have to be really conservative throughout the whole 21 days. You can't let your guard down at one point in time. Can never slip. You have to have a fantastic team around you. No negative thoughts slipping into your head. It takes a special person, so there's, when you look at the people who've won several in different, especially in the Giro, the Tour, and the Vuelta, that's a special person. And you definitely see it. I see it a lot more so since I've retired. I understand their mentality a lot better.
I think, Jonesy, I think the year after the first year, so Wigo rode his first ever GC at the Tour de France with Christian and with myself in 2009. So in 2008, Christian was 4th in the Tour. And the year after, both Christian and Brad were both on Garmin, and then they ran 4th and 7th. Yeah. 4th and 7th in the Tour. And the combination with Christian and Wigo was a really good one for myself because at the time, Christian had a lot of experience with the media and a lot of experience in the world of road cycling and professional road cycling, whereas Wigo came from he was the Olympic champion already on the track, but the track environment is very sterile and you can really shield the riders from the media, whereas Wigo hated the media. He still does. He's just different now. And he's part of it. He's part of it. But the tour that year, I remember Wigo's biggest fear was actually talking to people. He was very comfortable and confident in his ability on the bike, but he didn't just despised everything that involved running top 10 in GC on the tour. So Christian was I would palm the media off to Christian because Christian handles it very, very well. And whereas Wigo, I really had to shelter Wigo from the media that year because he just wasn't used to it. And I think the combination of the two worked really well. And those guys, they had a brilliant Tour de France in 2009.
Did you think back then, Christian, that Wigo could potentially be a Tour de France winner?
Oh, yeah. After what I saw in that tour, yeah, for sure. I mean, he had all the characters, especially if the course suited him well. yeah, I thought there was no reason why he couldn't be at least up in the top 3 consistently. Yeah, I mean, that was that was the same thing as myself the year before. No one expected him to do that, coming into this year, but he lost so much weight. He looked fantastic. I mean, he was absolutely killing us in the TTT practice coming into it. And I had just broken my back and my hip and my ribs. So I was barely making the team. So for me to even get a top 10, I don't even know if I recovered from that race until right now, Whitey, to be honest with you. I'm still a mess because of that. But it is, it was a special year, and the best team time trial of my entire life with those guys. I mean, you'll ask any of those guys. We dropped 4 out of the 9 in the first 10 or 15K, and it was just all 4 of us, and Ryder hanging out for dear life behind us. So it was, those are special days there in 2009.
Before we get into more intense chat here, we've got to plug the sponsors. I feel absolutely shit house after the last step. So maybe we quickly go through Milton Bike Exchange and we get back into it. Johnny?
Sounds good to me, mate. Oh, I thought you'd just be...
No, go do your plug. You got your script
live. Okay. Well, of course, there it is, the beautiful Mitchelton Winery up on the Goulburn, one of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. Experience the history, the beauty and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Looking over the vineyards and the iconic tower, staying at the new hotel, relaxing by the pool, recharging in the day spa, where you can quiet the mind, unwind the body and rediscover balance in a setting of peace and harmony. Explore the seasonal menu at the wonderful Muse restaurant, where local produce offers worlds of flavour. Sample our seasonal menu with all the wines perfectly paired. Stop by the Providor and tour the cellars, and of course taste their highly awarded signature wines, always to be enjoyed, and taste the craft and the care in every bottle at the cellar door. Mitchelton has become a very popular venue for weddings. There's a happy couple there, and to celebrate special occasions. And you've got to visit the Aboriginal Art Gallery, which is, I've just found out, the biggest private gallery in Australia. It's a must. It's a world-class, huge range of pieces from the nation's best Aboriginal artists. And there it is, the $10,000 Land Cruiser with the $2.5 million paint job.
It's back to 2.5. It's gone up from 1.8. Good stuff. All right, here's a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match, but not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
All right, we're back again. Christian Vande Velde and Matt White. Now, another character I want to talk to you about through those Garmin years was Dave Millar. I used to love some of his quotes. Are you there? Can you see me?
We can see you, Christian. You're all good.
Can you see us? Hang on. Add to stream. Can you see us, mate? Hello. Good thing we're not live, eh?
There we go.
Can you see us?
All good?
Yep.
All right. We're back with Christian Vande Velde and Matt White. Now, another character I want to talk to you about through those years, and we've had him on the show a bit, and we played old clips from early Tour de France days, is David Millar. What sort of effect did he have on the group, Christian, back then?
Yeah, I mean, Dave was the one who sold me on that whole project. I mean, like you brought up earlier with CSC, I was very happy. I was making a decent wage. I don't know what you want to call me, but just a good domestique. I could be reliable in the high mountains and the flats, anywhere that I had, like we were saying earlier, a fantastic team. So I really had no reason to leave. So it was definitely a leap of faith to a wild card team who didn't even wasn't assured to even do the Tour de France. So Dave was the one who sold me on this whole project and the ethos of it all. And then, Dave's he's so confident that he's always he's a natural leader when it comes to those kind of things. So we kind of followed his beat and his path, and maybe that has to do some of the went sideways at Cayman as well. That make a little more sense. But yeah, Dave. I spoke to Dave yesterday talking about his broken collarbone and how he has to replate it again. But we remain great friends to this day. And like I said, I would never have taken that leap of faith or think that I could have done what I did without Dave really backing me for all that.
How much money's Dave made out of his percentage ownership of the team?
Of Slipstream.
Yeah. Wasn't he a major shareholder, mate?
What's that, mate?
Wasn't part of the deal for him to sign up. He was a major shareholder of Slipstream. I think he had 1%.
Yeah, maybe. No, look, with Dave, I was the same as Christian. So I was riding still when Dave got in my ear about the project that he had planned, and I was the same. I was in Discovery Channel at the time, in a good place, and Dave spoke to me about what he had planned for the next year. He thought I'd be great in that role as a sport director. I hadn't even thought about being a sport director until Dave spoke to me. Because, back, 15 years ago, Belgians employed Belgians, French employed French, Italians, and so on. And there was no real international teams at the time. And I had a good think about it. And it was one of the hardest decisions at the time of my career, when to stop, because I wasn't even thinking about stopping. And at the end of the day, it was probably the best decision that I made. And I haven't looked back since, and really enjoyed this side of the fence. But it was Dave's idea to talk to me about retiring, and Dave's idea that the way the team was heading, and we all bought into it, and the rest is history.
Iffy?
Yeah, sensational times, actually. But just that's an interesting one, Whitey. Did you have anyone as a role model? Of all the people you had as DSs, you had some interesting guys, that you thought would be the right person to follow?
Look, I think I had some good sports directors, and I had some pretty average ones. And I think you learn just as much about the average from what not what to do as from the average ones as the good ones. But I think towards the end of my career as a rider, I was sort of that halfway guy between the big guys and the young guys, and I could relate to guys in a 25-man roster, and that certainly helped my transition the first couple of years, because I wasn't a big star, but I could relate to the young guys struggling, and I could also relate to the big guys who were winning the biggest races, and that really helped my first couple of years transitioning from being an athlete to managing a team.
And why did you ever look back and think of 2008? Like, how the hell did I ever, right this ship that whole year? I mean, it was completely disorganized. I mean, it's your first year, so even if you were going to Sky or Ineos, even the team you're on right now, if you're going to Michelin Sky right now, with how organized they are as a young, you're 34 years old, right? 33, 34?
34 and 28, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was a complete, it was a shit show a lot of times.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It was completely unorganized, but you somehow righted the ship, especially through the Tour de France and the lead up into that. It was a lot. Do you ever look back and think, like, how in the hell I got through that?
Yeah, I do. And look, I tell you, the person that I did lean on a lot in 2008 there was Shane Bannon, actually. And Shane was, Shane. I had a good relationship with Shane, and I just retired. And there was a couple of times there that I talked to Shane, and I was really at the limit at one stage from walking away, actually, because it was a lot of stress. And I did feel really responsible for the group that we had in Europe, and I wanted to make it work. And we just got on with it. And I suppose the one thing that I did learn from that year is I identified really good people in the organization. And look, there's a few of those people who I'm still working with 15 years later, and identified those people, kept them with me at the key races, and it was a young, enthusiastic group. And fortunately for us, we had a great core group of riders. And when you're winning, you can forget about a lot of things. And we got through 2008, and year by year, the team improved, and we improved, become experience and money, and we got things done. But 2008 was a very big jump into the unknown, and there's big periods of 2008 I don't remember because it was pretty stressful. But it was a ball, and I had a great group of guys I could do it with, and yourself and Julian and Dave and Ryder. It was a great group of guys to work with.
What can you elaborate a little bit more? Like, what causes the major stresses, particularly of that year? Is it the logistics? Is it like, what is it?
Ooh, where do you want to start, mate? So
just give us the most stressful.
Well, it was. Jonathan had a junior team in Colorado that turned into an under-23 team that turned into an under-23 team that did a 4-week block in Europe to a team that was trying to do the Giro and the Tour overnight. A lot of the staff, I remember going to the Giro d'Italia in 2008, and I was the only member of the staff who'd ever been to a Grand Tour. So there was people, and I was a rider, and I went there as a rider the year before. So 2007 Giro d'Italia, I was there as a rider. 2008, I was there as a manager. So there was a lot of people who were just totally out of their depth. So that brings a lot of insecurity. So you've got new people doing logistics. We bought secondhand busted buses and trucks. We had people staff who come from America for the first time, and they're at the Giro 2 months into working in professional cycling, or the Tour de France 4 months into working into the sport. So there was just so much new that people hadn't really got into a rhythm, or the beauty of the team we're with at the moment, we're coming into year 10, and we've got 85% of our staff from 2012, and everyone just knows their role, knows what they're responsible for, and they just get on with it. And that's the difference between a new team and an established team, that everyone knows what they're capable of. They know the people they're working with, and we were all new. We hadn't worked together with each other, and especially at that level and that level of pressure.
Dan, let me give you an example. So I got to go across the line first in the team time show, the pink jersey. And so after the podium, I had to go to the press conference. And the team was so psyched that they're all partying on the bus. They went back to the hotel. They left me, man. I mean, we're in Palermo, I mean, you might as well, be like on Mars.
The mafia.
And I took a cab home in the Maglia Rosa, and the cab driver did not believe me that was actually the pink jersey. Of why the hell would you be in my cab? And so he dropped me back off at the team hotel, and I threw Whitey in the pool.
That is awesome.
I love that. That is a
True
great story.
True story.
I love it. That is sensational.
But do riders feed off that like chaos? Like, can it work both ways? Or it sounds like your group you had your shit together and you could move forward, but that could obviously have negative effects if you start feeding off, oh geez, hang on, I don't think the staff really know what they're doing here.
Yeah, no, there is a point in time where things are like, hey, this is not okay. These guys, like Whitey said, I'd forgotten about that, but that's so true. There's a lot of those guys who had no idea, and we had the Garmin. It's okay to say now, but the Garmins didn't really work that well in Europe, especially, and so we'd find ourselves in people's backyards trying to find our way back home to the hotel.
Sounds like a detour.
One thing that we've talked a lot about on this show is transitions. Now, Whitey, you've mentioned transitioning from a rider to DS, so there wasn't a lot of time to sort of dwell on it. What we're finding in 2020, there's a lot of riders that are out of contract that are starting to think, oh shit, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? How did you go, Christian, with the whole transition side from being a pro cyclist to what you're doing now?
Well, I was really lucky, Dan, and I had a pseudo audition after I crashed out of the Tour de France. I came back actually to France back from Chicago, and did like a couple hits on NBC just to see how they've been in and out of guys who were hosting the desk. And so I got a job just by going back there and putting my foot forward and trying that out. So luckily I kind of had a job, and I took a job also as a money manager for a little while, trying to try that out. I'm not going to say it was easy. It's completely different on the other side of the fence, especially when you've known no different for the last 20 some years. That's all you know how to do, and be involved and have that camaraderie and all those kind of things. Everything was fine, honestly, until January, when you're supposed to be in training camp and you're still home and your wife's looking at you, why are you still here? And I don't know why I'm here. Why, so it's that was hard. And that's when I started helping out with the union. So we started a North American union. So I still stayed involved, and still staying involved by calling races helped a lot. So now I feel like I've talked about the chip on your shoulder. The chip on the shoulder of being an athlete is starting to wear off for the last couple of years, and it's nice to be content with your life. But I think for most riders, it's not easy. Any athlete really to have, especially if they're lucky enough to have a long career. It's hard. The what next is not easy for them. But luckily enough, I found my way into working with NBC, and seeing all you guys back at the races makes me feel fulfilled.
Well, how was 2020 this year? We've spoken to Phil Liggett on this show, and he actually loves it because, like, he can sit in his own little bubble and do his commentary. How did you find it, not being at the race?
It was 50-50. Like you didn't have to drive 2 or 3 hours a day, so you had that much more time. But at the same time, you were waking up at 3:45 and have hair and makeup and a suit on, early in the morning. So you don't see the light. You're in a studio, so you never even look out the window. And you really don't have that energy. You don't run into Whitey, as you walk into your car. You don't see some random people. I don't see people like yourself and you give me, hey, did you hear about this guy that I would never have heard about? So there's a lot more work on the phone. The show came off great. And I don't know if we'll ever go back, to be honest with you. We'll have to see. I mean, when the head lead sponsor, not the sponsor, but the networks save so much money by us not being there. But I think after a certain point in time, they'll definitely have the studio back there as some of the other riders. But guys like Phil, and Bob, when they're actually calling the race, maybe it doesn't really change that for them at all. Maybe for us in the studio, it's a little bit different. Just actually see in the background that you're truly in France, and in saying things like, I rode the course this morning. This is what the conditions I see. I think that is really strong. That's really big for the viewers at home. So I think there's a lot to be said there. But apart from that, it was a good year for cycling. Thank goodness, first of all. I mean, one of the best tours I've ever seen in my entire life. And then also our viewership, I think worldwide, was way up. So it was good all around, even though it was under adverse conditions.
What are you talking about? Wigo not liking the media. How hard is it to get across to riders that without the media and without sponsors and exposure, I mean, you don't have a sport? Because, other guys that clearly don't like doing the media, or it doesn't come naturally, is the Yates boys. So is that been a process trying to get them to feel more comfortable? Is that's almost part of the job?
Yeah, it was Adam Yates' dream Tour de France this year. And there's not too many times in the world where you got the yellow jersey in the Tour de France and there's no one standing outside your bus because there's no one allowed, no one allowed anywhere near it. So he was loving it, mate. But look, I think all the riders they get it, but some are just a lot more natural at it than others. And even between the two Yates, Simon's a lot more. He's a lot more open with the media, and he gets it more. He gets it. He gets it because he's been schooled a little bit different with the British system, whereas Adam has a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder, and Adam has a little bit different opinion of the media than others.
Christian, have you found, like with 2020, that there used to be a thicker guard with riders and staff, whereas now they feel a lot more comfortable showing vulnerabilities, being a lot more emotional in interviews? I mean, from your perspective, this must be gold footage for guys like at NBC.
Absolutely, man. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the amount of times that I've gotten choked up. The first one that really saw it was when Geraint Thomas won the Tour de France, and he completely lost it. When after the time trial, when he could finally let his guard down, that was really emotional, and I think that really got the ball rolling. But this year was completely different altogether, where you really saw a lot of emotion coming through, and you saw a lot of great sportsmanship above and beyond. When Primoz embraced Tadej after the time trial, I thought that was incredible. Dan Martin completely losing in the Vuelta. That was his first win since his kids have been born. I mean, he completely choked up. He was worthless in the interview after that. So there was quite a bit of that, and it's great to see that. These guys aren't robots. They're under an extreme amount of pressure, pushing so hard, just not physically, but mentally throughout the year. And what a year. I mean, if you're really going to let your guard down, show the effects of what this year was all about, this one is the one to show it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, amazing stuff. Now, Whitey, we're going to give you the flick in a second, but I've got to ask you one thing first, because we really want to talk to Christian's dad, John, who I know is hanging around in the wings there looking after the grandkids, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. And I know you've got to go, Dan, but one of my favourite memories is of when the Green Edge team was just, the idea was there, and we went over to Italy. Jerry's brought a group of people who are going to be involved in media and whatever, and we had this week in Italy. You were still with Garmin, of course, at the Giro, but you sort of, your mind might have been where you might be going the next year. And we got to the time trial, and we've got a Green Edge painted car, so we get ready for the next year. It's not even a team, but it's got the Green Edge all over it. And they someone said, "Oh, can you follow someone in the time trial?" Oh, yeah. So we get in line, and suddenly they whack it was a Garmin rider. So we've got the Green Edge car with the Garmin rider's name on front, and we followed them in the time trial. And I'm thinking, oh, gee, Jonathan Borders doesn't know what's going on here. But anyway, you remember that one, mate?
I do. I'd been actually fired by Garmin earlier in the year. That's no, I do, mate. That's 2011 Giro. I do, mate. It was the Green Edge junket there. We took the new bus for a bit of a trip around Italy and France.
Yeah.
No, mate, it was an Italian version of the Cayman Island trip, I think.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, all good. Yeah, thanks, Whitey.
All right, gents.
All right, Whitey, thanks for joining us, mate, and we'll no doubt see you again soon on the detour.
All right, guys. Good to catch up.
Good to see you,
bud.
See you, mate. Now, as if he said, we want to have a quick chat to your old man, if it's possible, and deep dive into the passion for the sport from the Vande Velde side, because the roots run deep.
All right, I'll go see if we can find him.
Okay, drag him over. That'd be great. Yeah.
No worries.
I thought I'd just move that along a little bit because I could see the time.
Yeah, I've got a skedaddle in. But all right, Johnny, you lead the charge.
G'day, John. Well, there you go. Well, look, it's been interviewed to Christian, and then we look at the history. So we've got Father John, and when I Googled you, John, and it came up as Gene, but when it comes up Gene Vande Velde, he's the golfer who choked on the last hole of the British Open, and I never won it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, you never recovered from that. But John, and it turns out I realised where you're an old fart. You're actually older than me by about 6 months.
But, welcome again, John. Welcome.
But interestingly, you were at Munich Olympics, so we were obviously there. We probably bumped into each other and didn't know. But you also, as a very youngster, went to the '68 Olympics in Mexico. But your family history is great. Your grandfather came out from Belgium.
Yep.
And he was he a cyclist himself or a cycling fan? I think he was into cycling.
Yeah,
cyclist. Yeah, and then your dad was a racing cyclist, and then you, and then of course. So tell us a little bit about that history, mate.
No, it was an easy transition because I used to swim before I rode, but I couldn't get excited anymore for swimming, and so I just I went to a bike race that my brother and my uncle rode in. Elton, Chicago, and I loved it. I got so excited, and so I said, I want to do this. And my dad says, no, you're going to make the Olympic team in swimming. I said, no, I don't think I am. And so, anyways, it worked out great. And yeah, I love the sport of cycling. And I'm so happy that Christian made inroads, and that's what I really and truly am proud of. That I broke down the barriers. After Munich, I turned pro and I rode the 6 days for 2 years. And the Europeans never thought we could do it. They didn't think we could ride, and we proved them wrong.
Yes, well, I remember you and Jackie Symes riding together, and I used to watch. I rode 6 days, but only in Australia. But I loved the sixes, and it was sort of something, a breath of fresh air, because you weren't just riding. There were plenty of English and that who'd ridden, but not starred. But you guys were really in there. Like, I mean, you ran second in one of the toughest sixes in Germany.
Yeah. We were competitive, and I did not like the blue train. I fought them. I didn't like them at all, and that cost me a little bit, but I didn't care. I just didn't like to be told you have to lose this race, you have to win this race. I didn't like that.
Now, didn't Jack get kicked out for a little while? Didn't he have a bit of a blue with Peter Post and punch him or something?
Yep. Exactly.
Oh well,
John, what was some of the advice you passed on to Christian with all the experience you had in the sport? What were some of the key things you want to tell him for his cycling journey?
The main thing I wanted to tell him was that, don't think that they're any better than you. They put their pants on the same way that you do, and we all do. And if you train hard and keep your nose clean and you can do this thing. And it was hard at the beginning. It really was hard. He fell a lot on the track, but once he got rolling, man, I didn't even have to tell him how to train. I got him into the proper clubs. I got him to the proper coaches, and then I just washed my hands, and watched him rise.
Which part of his career and all the things that he achieved were you most proud? Was there any particular moments that really popped out?
Well, obviously 2000 actually one of the most proudest time I was in 1997 when he was World Cup champion in the pursuit, and he went on. He was in Adelaide to race in the pursuit, and he raced against Stewie, and it was a close race, and I knew with 2 laps to go that Christian had him, and the place went absolutely silent. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Stewie's never mentioned that one to me. We'll have to bring that up. Look, it's a wonderful thing, this Google, because one of the things that popped up in Google was you were in the movie Breaking Away. I love that movie. Yeah. And it was all about this youngster who pretends he's Italian and all of that. And then the Italian team comes out and races against he races against them in this race.
His wheel.
Yes. Now that was you were one of you were a pretend Italian for that, so you're all dressed up and a bit of fun.
See.
But that was the only thing wrong with the movie. Oh. And the Italian whacks the pump in front of the young kid's wheel, and down he goes. Who carries a pump in a bike race?
Hey. It's Hollywood, It's Hollywood. That's all you can say about that.
But what was it like to be a part of that movie? Because it was a great movie.
Oh, thank you. We got nominated for 3 Academy Awards and got 1, and but that 7 minutes or 8 minutes that I had took 5 days, 12 hours a day. And we had I had to eat 5 bananas one time because he couldn't take the corner at speed. It was, but in that particular spot where we knocked him down, we had to do that 5 times or 6 times, and we actually had a catapult in the front of his bike, and even if we didn't put the pump in at the right time, he was going down.
I'll tell you, I'm just going to tell people to get that movie Breaking Away, because forgetting the cycling part, which was a lot of fun, but it's just a really nice movie anyway, a really good story.
It's a great movie. It's really. I watched it a couple weeks ago with my in-laws, and they really enjoyed it. It's got a good theme to it. It's very good.
And do you still watch a lot of cycling nowadays? You still get involved with tuning in things like the Tour and so forth?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, anything that Christian is behind, I do it. I watch it. If I would love to see more track racing, but I love when he's commentating.
Do you pass on tips like my old man with the media stuff, where it's like, oh mate, maybe next time try saying it like this, or any of the tips with the media?
I used to at the beginning, but now he's gotten so good and proficient at it that I just text him and say, good job, you're great. You're straighten your tie. I do things like that.
Yeah. Dan loves these the critical stuff coming from his dad. He really thrives on it. Now, I was talking to one of my old racing mates, Gordon Johnson, yesterday actually, and Gordy was world sprint champion in 1970, and he rode the sixes. I think just before you might have crossed over a fraction, but he was a sprinter, and he copped a hiding in the sixes. But he was talking about the character Americans who had come through from that era, from Timmy Mountford and Disney and all those guys, and he was good mates with Jackie Symes as well. So. But he was full of praise for you guys, and what how special it was what you did for the 6 days.
No, thank you, Gordy. Great guy. I lived in Rotterdam with Timmy Mountford and a couple other guys, and Gordon's sister cooked for us and helped us with when I fell. She's a nurse, so when I fell a couple of times, she fixed me up. But I love Gordy. Yeah, he's a good man, and all I've had so much fun with guys from Australia. Phil Bates and I were really close. We were on the UCI track commission together, and we've had many laughs. You guys know how to party,
No, we do. And Janine knows how to party too, so she's a character. Yeah. Now, one of the other things that are interesting, you built a velodrome when you come on. They call it the Vanderdrome. You built a portable velodrome, I think, hoping to get the 6 days going a bit around Europe. Can you tell us a bit about that story?
Well, actually, it wasn't to get the 6 days. I knew when I came back from Europe the second year, I knew the 6 days were not going to work in the United States. They were too slow. They developed, the fixing thing drove me nuts. And I developed a game, and that's what I felt that the cycling needed, and I still do. And it's a game with 4 teams on the track. You can do countries versus countries, or cities versus cities, and that's what I was interested in. And I had some really good games. Did it in Los Angeles, and then in Chicago, and then upstate New York, and New Jersey, and then my final one was at the Goodwill Games in New York City. And but I could just never get it rolling. I just couldn't get it rolling, and spent way too much money on it.
So this was all from but you built this portable track that you were able to cart around the States. Yeah,
I built it, and it was expensive to put up. It took 6 tractors to carry it, and it was good, but it wasn't perfect, but everybody. I mean, Christian rode it in San Diego. I mean, it was a good track. It was a really good track. 166 after Ghent.
You were saying earlier that you'd like to see more track racing on TV. It really has died off a fair bit here in Australia. Is that the case in America, and why do you think that is?
Well, I think we were burdened, and Phil Bates and I really fought the UCI when we got on there to change the events. I don't care what anybody says. Time trials are boring, and we changed we got the Kieran in, and we did other things. And this game that I invented is just all the way, speed, one-on-one against each other, and men and women on the same team, scoring points. It's totally different, and I just think the format has got to be changed. It has to be changed.
Is it frustrating to see, a sport that you've loved and you've got a lot of passion for, just not get that exposure that it deserves?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very frustrating. I many sleepless nights. I mean, I've been to Australia 5 times, to try to talk people into it, and Europe many times. I thought I had Sky talked into it, and then the Lance thing hit, and it lost it. But I've pretty much given up. But I'd love to try to get it going.
Don't give up the fight, mate. People see this episode, and who knows?
I know. Never know.
Spike it again. That's it.
I got to talk to Stewie and get it in the speed thing in Adelaide.
Well,
yeah, we'll work on that.
The COVID thing, iffy. I mean, Santos Tour Down Under, there is a track event that's going to get Prime Posse, I think, to kick things off, isn't there, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Tour Down Under, John, won't be happening as a Tour Down Under, but it will still be an event. So they're going to be more a national road series, but the sponsors are staying on. And I know Stewie's looking at a virtual event to run alongside it, so they will be racing, and also a big track event in at the indoor velodrome in Adelaide.
Adelaide, yeah, beautiful place. Been there several times.
Now, Johnny, we're going to have to unfortunately wrap things up pretty quickly, but is there anything you want to say to John before we have to let him go?
No,
look, fantastic to have you. Well, that's the problem with John and John. We don't know who he's talking to here.
Should have said iffy.
You should have said iffy, yeah. But look, no, fantastic to have you on, mate. And I'm sure we probably have bumped into each other at one stage or another. As I mentioned, I was a roadie at Munich. You were a trackie back in those days, and I think you would have raced against my mate John Bilsma in one of the rounds for sure.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Good old days.
Christian, while you're there in the background, we always sort of finish with this, and that is, we talk to a lot of successful people, and 2020, let's not shy away, it's been a bag of shit. How do you get through tough moments, and how do you, start climbing the mountain again? What from your story, and even you, John, that's not you, Iffy, that's the other John.
Yeah.
What advice can you give people?
It's definitely tested all of our patience, and I think it's definitely tested mine. And that's definitely not one of my virtues. But I've just learned that when one door shuts, another one opens, and I just try to believe in that and keep on going. But apart from that, yeah, it does suck, and I'm not going to get over it. But this is the first time I've seen him in 9 months or even longer than that. So just being around family as much as possible, and there has been some silver lines. I got the call the Vuelta from right here, so that was pretty darn good. So there's been some positives, but I just try to dwell on the positive and try to put the negatives behind me.
That's good advice. And what about you, John?
No, I echo the same things. You just gotta wait for that other door to open and jump, man. When you're ready, just be ready to jump. So
good stuff, mate.
Talk to Stewie for me, okay?
Yeah, will do.
Well, thanks.
I will say that, through this all, I've been more willing to take chances, though, just because, shit, you don't know what tomorrow's going to have, so you might as well, do the things that you've been hedging and thinking about doing for the longest times. Why not? Let's go.
What do you got to lose? Exactly. Back yourself.
Great advice. Yeah.
Well, it's been a fantastic episode. We can't thank you enough for joining the Detour, guys. A lot of inspirational stuff in there, a lot of laughs, and I'm sure people are going to extract a fair bit out of your story. So thanks for sharing it.
Thank you, guys.
Well, pleasure. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thanks, fellas. Yeah.
Good on you guys.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy.